Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome, focus learners, to a very special GCSE explainer on what is easily one of the most chilling and fascinating poems on your entire syllabus, Robert Browning's My Last Duchess. Look, if you're aiming to absolutely smash your English literature exam and secure those top marks, you're in exactly the right place. We are going to break down everything you need to know, from the historical context and poetic form right down to the exact quotes the examiners are literally waiting to see.
Now, to really get a grip on this poem, I want you to completely change how you look at it. Don't just think of it as words on a page. Think of it as a true crime cold case. The setting? 16th century Italy. Our primary suspect? A powerful, incredibly wealthy duke. And his motive? Pure, unadulterated jealousy, mixed with an absolute, terrifying obsession with control. I mean, just consider this primary piece of evidence. I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. It is without a doubt one of the most famous, spine-tingling lines in all of English literature. Did he have her murdered? Was she locked away in a tower? Well, we'll get into all of that. But first, let's map out the exact strategy we need to secure maximum marks on this poem. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be hitting the plot and context, diving into form and structure analysis, pulling out those key themes and quotes, comparing this with other poems, and finishing up with some insider tips for maximum marks. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, the plot and context. So, what is actually going down in this poem? Basically, the Duke of Ferrara is busy negotiating a brand new marriage with an emissary. And how does he entertain this guest? By showing off a portrait of his deceased former wife. Browning masterfully drops us right into the 16th century Italian Renaissance world, a time and place where high art was everything. You have this incredibly vivid portrait contrasting with the sprawling historic rooftops of Ferrara. The Duke is totally obsessed with the fictional painter, Fra Pandolf. But keep this in mind, his true character isn't just about appreciating art, it's about owning it. And here is where it gets interesting. The crucial point is understanding the massive gap between when the poem is set and when it was actually written. Robert Browning wrote this back in 1842, right in the thick of the Victorian era. Now, while the poem is based on a real historical figure, Alfonso II, whose first wife mysteriously died under very suspicious circumstances, Browning is actually using this whole Renaissance setting as a clever disguise. He's secretly, sharply criticizing his own strictly patriarchal Victorian society. We're talking about a world where women had almost no political voice, definitely couldn't vote, and were tragically often treated as mere objects to be acquired through marriage. Moving right along to section 2, form and structure analysis. Okay, listen up, because examiners absolutely love it when you decode the mechanics of a poem. It proves you understand exactly how the poet constructed their message, rather than just knowing what the message is. And the absolute most important term you need for your arsenal here is dramatic monologue. The entire poem is spoken solely by the Duke. That messenger he's talking to, he doesn't get a single word in edgewise. And this choice of form is 100% deliberate. The Duke's complete domination of the conversation perfectly mirrors his absolute silencing control over his late wife. There is literally no female voice in this poem, which brilliantly reflects how women were politically and socially silenced in Victorian society. Now, let's unpack this structure, because Browning sets up a fascinating tug-of-war here. On one side, the poem uses strict iambic pentameter and tight rhyming couplets, A, B, A, B. Think of this highly traditional conservative rhyme scheme as his absolute control. It's his refined aristocratic facade. But on the other side, the poem is just this one massive, overwhelming stanza packed with enjambment, where sentences just bleed over the ends of lines without stopping, and caesura, which are those sharp, jarring pauses right in the middle of lines. This completely fractures his calm exterior, exposing his loss of control and deep paranoia. Actually, let me just show you what that loss of control sounds like. Check out the punctuation in this quote. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-years-old name with anybody's gift. Do you hear how rambling, chaotic, and breathless that delivery is? The enjambment and those frantic dashes force the reader to mimic his unraveling state of mind. It's Browning's genius way to show, don't tell. The polished, arrogant facade is cracking right in front of us, revealing a violently jealous and paranoid man underneath. Let's shift gears into section 3. Key themes and quotes. Let's look at the very opening lines of our cold case. Notice the immediate use of the possessive pronoun my. He is establishing total ownership right out of the gate. And that phrase, looking as if she were alive, man, that is just dripping with sinister, dramatic irony. Because as you read on, you slowly realize he actually prefers her this way. As a literal piece of art on the wall, he finally has total, unwavering control over her. He even controls the curtain that covers the painting. He values her far, far more as an owned object than he ever did as a living, breathing human being. And this brilliantly illustrates the Duke's toxic masculinity and his incredibly warped view of marriage. Right at the end of the poem, after casually hinting that he had his wife murdered, he points out another piece of art, a bronze statue of the sea god Neptune taming a seahorse. This is a direct, heavy-handed metaphor for his own extreme pride. He literally sees himself as a god, and he views women, especially his wives, as wild beasts that simply must be tamed, controlled, and dominated by his masculine power.
Which brings us to Section 4, Comparing with Other Poems. All right, get ready to take a screenshot because we've mapped out the ultimate comparative cheat sheet for your power and conflict anthology. If your exam question focuses on the theme of pride and the fleeting nature of power, you definitely want to compare My Last Duchess with Percy Shelley's Ozymandias. You can perfectly contrast the Duke's arrogant, authoritarian hubris with Ozymandias' crumbling, forgotten statue, proving that the Duke's obsession with his 900-years-old name is ultimately just as fragile. On the flip side, if the theme is tyranny and the oppression of women, pair it with William Blake's London. You can draw a direct line between the dehumanization of the Duchess and Blake's oppressed society, especially the victimized youthful harlot. Finally, welcome to our exam masterclass in Section 5, Tips for Maximum Marks. Let's rapid-fire the most actionable advice from our sources so you can walk into that exam hall feeling absolutely bulletproof. Look, examiners are very clear about what they want. First, focus on how Browning's overall ideas are constructed, rather than just playing spot the metaphor. Second, and I cannot stress this enough, do not just drop random historical trivia about the real Duke Alfonso or the Italian Renaissance. You must always link your context directly to the themes of the poem. Tell the examiner why Browning used this setting to critique Victorian male power and social inequality. And finally, lean hard into the dramatic irony. Show the examiner that you understand the Duke is accidentally exposing his own monstrous nature to us, the readers, even while he thinks he sounds incredibly sophisticated. I want to leave you with a final thought to really chew on. Think about the title, My Last Duchess. He is quite literally in the middle of negotiating for his next Duchess. So if his last wife ended up as a painting behind a curtain just because she smiled too much, what fate awaits the next young woman to carry his 900-years-old name? The true horror of this poem isn't just what happened in the past. It's the terrifying cyclical nature of patriarchal dominance that promises to happen all over again. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep studying smart and best of luck on your exams. You're going to crush it.